800-919-3776 is the number to be a part of the show. Only one guest today because I know I got a lot to say, and I know if you're a New York football fan, you have a lot to say. So we'll take plenty of your calls today. I mean, I was debating where to start, right? Obviously, we start football on a Football Monday here. I'd be remiss if we don't squeeze in some Knicks conversation because shout out to the Knicks and Jalen Brunson for sticking it to the Heat last night. It is always a good day when the Knicks can beat the Heat. But I'll start with the New York Jets because not only did they get embarrassed yesterday, but we continue to get absolutely gaslit by this head coach who doesn't have a clue what he's doing. Can we be honest? Again, I will fully recognize it is better for the Jets, big picture, to lose these last few games. But how they're losing, how non-competitive they are, that's a problem because that doesn't actually happen to teams that eventually turn it around. And here's what I mean. So I don't believe Aaron Glenn's going to get fired. I don't think Woody Johnson has the stomach to admit that level of mistake and make a move like Robert Kraft did a year ago. But right now, if Aaron Glenn turns it around with the Jets, it would be a historic outlier. Here's what I mean. Just 4 of 17 coaches since 1980 who started 0-6 or worse eventually led that team to the playoffs. Now, one of those coaches was Dan Campbell. Here's the problem, right? People will say, well, look at the Lions, Jake. Look at the Lions. Okay, let's look at the Lions. They ended their season winning 3 of their final 6 games. They actually trended in the right direction at the end of year 1. And then, by the way, look at the Lions. They started 1-6 the following season in 2022. Are we sure Aaron Glenn would survive if the Jets start 1-6 next year if they're going to be the Lions? I'm not. And this is before we even talk about how they'll get a higher draft pick now, maybe a quarterback. They have the cap space. Just looking at the evidence, 4 of 17 coaches since 1980 who started 0-6 or worse actually took their team to the playoffs. We're banking on an outlier now as Jet fans. How has that worked for the Jets? So again, Aaron Glenn, I don't believe will be fired, but how could you actually think this team is trending in the right direction? This coach came in and said they're going to win now, then moved the goalpost when they started losing, and he said big ships take a while to turn. It's an instant coffee league. He completely flipped what he was selling. He said all summer that this team would clean up the penalty problem. He started his press conference yesterday lamenting the fact that the penalties continue to hurt them. He has not cleaned that up. We were told that players would play hard for Aaron Glenn. The New York Jets have been outscored 111-36 in their last 3 games. In 2 of those games, they played a Miami Dolphins team that has already benched their quarterback since. They stink. And yesterday, they made Tyler Shuck, who is also a rookie quarterback, they made him look like he was Drew Brees in his prime. Aaron Glenn fired his defensive coordinator. He blamed it all on Wilks and said, we're running the Wilks system. Glenn's supposed to be a defensive coach. Don't tell me they traded Sauce Gardner and Quinn Williams. They sucked with those guys. The New York Jets are going to lose their final 2 games. They're playing the New England Patriots on Sunday. They're playing the Buffalo Bills the following week. When they finish 3-14, just so Jet fans understand the historic ineptitude we're looking at here with Aaron Glenn and this Jets team, when they finish 3-14, Aaron Glenn will join Adam Gase and Rich Kotite as the only Jet coaches to ever lose 14 games or more in a single season. That's where we're starting with this coach. So don't tell me that they're trying to lose on purpose. If they were just going out there and playing tight games and losing, I would understand it. They're getting blown out against bad teams. The Saints were 4-10. You made them look like world beaters yesterday. This team's getting worse, not better. Glenn keeps talking about how they're laying the foundation. There's no foundation being laid. You fired the defensive coordinator. You're going to have brand new defensive coaches coming in trying to lay their foundation. 50% of the roster is going to be turned over. There's no foundation being laid here. And some of the players that we thought were good football players have all regressed. He preached player development. Who has actually improved on this team? I'll give you one, Jawan Briggs. How many times can we say the Jets have a great special teams unit? I'm sick of it. It's not enough. Their 3 wins this year are against 3 backup quarterbacks. They don't have an impressive win. The Jets are supposed to be the Saints, the team that's trending in the right direction after they look like the worst team in the league for several weeks of this year. What can you point to on this team? Let me just ask a simple question. What does Aaron Glenn do well as a head coach? Why should any Jet fan have faith in him? Remember when Aaron Glenn said that they're not the same old Jets when they started 0-3? Remember that? I was at that game in Tampa, that fake comeback Todd Bowles special that gave the Jets a shot, only for their defense to blow it late as usual. Remember that? They're not the same old Jets. He's right, they're worse. Not the same old Jets. Started 0-7 and then tried to act like this was all part of the plan. No, they made the trades at the deadline because they were horrible. Glenn talked about the fact that the last 4 minutes of each half belonged to the coach. He highlighted the fact that the Jets last year under Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich had the lead 7 times in the fourth quarter that they blew. They led the NFL in blown fourth quarter leads. They broke a franchise record for blown fourth quarter leads. They can't even get to the fourth quarter this year with a lead because they're that awful. So again, I have no idea about Tanner Engstrand, the offensive coordinator, because Glenn's biggest decision was Justin Fields, his handpicked quarterback, who he said in part he signed because he was tough to game plan against. He's never been coached properly. Oh, you mean the Justin Fields that with Mike Tomlin was 4-2 last year? How's Mike Tomlin doing this year, Aaron Glenn? Oh, he's 9-6 with the quarterback you couldn't wait to get rid of? Oh, wow. Who could have seen that coming? Only anyone with a brain. And it wouldn't have worked with Aaron Rodgers here because all the blame would be on Rodgers. You'd have the Rodgers derangement syndrome people going after him and not the real problem that this head coach is not good at his job. The roster is also bad. Multiple things could be true. The Jets roster is bad. The coach is bad. And how am I supposed to sit here and try and expect it to be better next year?
Big ships turn slow.
I mean, the Jets can never turn anything around. They just keep spinning around 360 degrees here. It's enough, man. They don't have an interception yet this year. What does Aaron Glenn do when he shows up to the Jet facility every week? We know Woody Johnson said he gives him a hug. After that, what then happens? Because he doesn't call plays on offense. He doesn't call the plays on defense. The Jets are always, schematically, outclassed. So what exactly does he do? Why should I, as a Jet fan, have any confidence that when the Jets get off to their usual 1-5 start next year, he's not going to be dead coach walking, and we're going to be playing out the string again. The playoff drought will be in year 16, and then we're going to do the coaching search all over again in 2027 and hope that the fact that the Jets have 3 first-round picks and even more cap space, will attract a coach that wants this job. We got to wait till then. Someone texted me around the Jets, I won't say who, and texted me 19, and I responded, 19? 19 games to go, referencing the 2 left this year and then 17 next year with Glenn. That's where we're at. We're a year in. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Jake, he needs more time. He has been that bad this year. Again, we'd be banking on an outlier for Aaron Glenn to be a good coach at this point. 4 of 17 coaches since 1980 who started their tenure 0-6 or worse actually ended up taking their team to the playoffs. It's enough, man. Again, I don't think he'll be fired, but if Woody Johnson actually did it, he'd have every right to do it. It's been that bad. And don't tell me, oh, Jake, they're tanking. Look at the roster. Brady cooked this, Brady cooked that. Stop. Look what your eyes are telling you. It shouldn't look like this. 800-919-3776. It's one thing to lose, and Bart Scott, who I'm in with tomorrow, filling in for Carlin, he said it on the SNY postgame show yesterday. Should the Saints really be 23 points better than the Jets? The answer is obviously no. And what bothers me about Glenn, a lot of things, but here's another thing. He keeps focusing on these old school talking points like effort, penalties, field position, and obviously those things matter. But in today's NFL, they're secondary. It's not the foundation of winning. He said last week, it's not about the X's and O's. It's all about the X's and O's. Again, first time defensive coach who doesn't even call plays on defense. We've done this how many times? They hired a worse version of Robert Saleh, who for all his issues at least was a master defensive coordinator. At least we saw defensive players get better. Quincy Williams is now unplayable. He was a first-team All-Pro with Saleh. JFM developed into a hell of a player off waivers under Robert Saleh. I could keep going. Sauce played at his best with Saleh. Quinnen at his best with Saleh. You think it's just a coincidence Quinnen goes to Dallas and immediately looks like Quinnen Williams again? I mean, go down the line. Jamie and Sherwood actually had a good game yesterday. He was the team MVP a year ago. This year he's been unplayable. Glenn chose to extend him. Glenn sounds like a coach stuck in a 20, 30-year-old mindset instead of adapting to how the league is. You're listening to Tom Brady emphasize on air the other night about how critical tactics and scheme are in today's NFL. My buddy Robbie Sabo, who founded JetX, has been all over this. It is about the X's and O's. The other stuff matters, but we're focused on the wrong things. We keep hiring these rah-rah guys. That's not what wins in the NFL. And again, what evidence do we have that Glenn has any idea what he's doing? And he's also the head decision maker too, right? Muji reports to him. The owner referred to Muji as Glenn's sidekick. So I'm so disgusted with the idea. Oh, Jake the roster. Ask yourself this, Jet fans. If everyone says, oh, well, the Jets are trying to do what the Lions did. The Lions were 9-8 at the end of their second year. How are the Jets going to go 9-8 next year? How? Have you seen their schedule? Who's playing quarterback? We have no idea. Even if they get Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, are they being put in an environment where they're going to be successful? I mean, I like some of the offensive line pieces. I love Garrett Wilson. A.D. Mitchell looks like a player. You don't have nothing on that side of the ball, but do we have the right coaching staff? Have you seen who the Jets quarterback coach is? It's a guy by the name of Charles London. He's a former college running back. He coached running backs in the NFL. He only recently started coaching quarterbacks. How is this guy our quarterback coach? He's a former running back. That's who Glenn hired to be the QB coach. And as bad as Justin Fields was, he was never this bad in Chicago or Pittsburgh. Again, there's so many warning signs of this coach not being good at his job. And we are just going to delay what we all know is eventually going to happen. When he survives, we go through next year. The Jets have another losing year. He's fired. We do the search all over again. Because I'm so down in the dumps about this team. It's one thing to lose. And I acknowledge it's better for them to lose than to win these games. But how they're losing is alarming. They are minus 75 in point differential in their last 3 games. It's their worst stretch through 3 games since 2002. It's mind-boggling to me that people sit here and actually try to defend where this organization is headed. You can't do it. 800-919-3776.
No, Michael K.
Jake Asman in for Michael. I know Jet fans are fired up. We will get to the Giants as well because what they did yesterday really opens up an enormous amount of questions you got to ask about the direction of this team going forward. But we start with the Jets, and let's get to your calls. Mr. Jet is first. That's Ira in Staten Island. Hello, Ira. You're on the Michael K. Show with Jake Asman.
Hey, Jake, good afternoon, and let me compliment you. That was one of the best openings I've ever heard on the radio. You hit every point. I don't even know what to say because you covered everything. I agree everything you said. You know how I feel about the coach. You know how I feel going forward. So I'm just taking to take it in another direction, and I'm sure you're going to hit this during the show. You look at the offensive coordinator, all right? Now, I get what Justin Fields is, and I was wrong. I was hoping maybe he could have been at least a quarterback for a year or two for us. You got no rollouts, no nothing. They put Brady Cook in. All of a sudden, he's rolling out. He's trying to make plays with his legs. I mean, granted, maybe he's a third string at best, but at least they're trying to give him something to work with. Justin Fields, they take away his legs, and they try to make him a pocket passer. So when you factor that in, you can't have any type of confidence. I don't care if they take Mendoza, they take Moore, if Tom Brady becomes a free agent. The Jets are not going to know what to do with a quarterback. And that's what concerns me the most. You have Aaron Glenn who can't take care of the defense, and you mark my words, Harris is going to be the de facto DC next year, and Glenn will be calling the plays. So it'll be like Ulbrich Saleh. You know, you're going to have the title, and Glenn's really calling it. That's how that's going to go down. But where would they even get a decent defensive coordinator like a Martindale type of guy? Why would he come to the Jets knowing that Glenn's going to get fired after next season? Why would somebody take a job as a DC for 1 year?
Ira, all fair, and I do appreciate the kind words. Again, maybe Aaron Glenn should call the defense. That's what got you the job, right? Now, if you look at his defenses in Detroit, to be fair, they weren't anything special, but they forced a lot of turnovers. How did we have a defensive coach that has not allowed that we have gone through an NFL record now amount of games without an interception? Like, it drives me crazy. Again, what's happening here, people, is not normal. Don't be desensitized because you're just used to the Jets always being bad. They're actually, for their standards, worse than they've ever been. And there is some talent on this team. I get it. They traded Sauce and Quinnen. Still, they've had the same 5 offensive linemen all year. Armand Membu's had a really good year. Same with Tippmann. Same with Fashanu. They still have Breece Hall. Why can't they all of a sudden run the ball? I mean, again, I like some of the moves that Darren Muji has made. And I believe he's done his job better than Aaron Glenn has done his. But how could you have confidence in anyone over there making these big decisions? And Aaron Glenn is just a walking hypocrite. Oh, competition. Made Joe Tippmann have to compete for the starting center job. They anointed Justin Fields the starter, gave him $30 million guaranteed with zero competition. Tyrod's a better quarterback. $30 million guaranteed. Glenn said in part because he's never been coached properly. He was tough to game plan against. This is the guy making the biggest decision the Jets are going to make for the next couple of years. Oh, it's so frustrating. And again, I don't think Woody Johnson is going to make a change here, but he would have every right to. You think the Patriots regret moving on from Gerard Mayo? Again, I know they hired Mike Vrabel, but seriously, a defensive head coach who doesn't call plays on defense, that's the guy we're entrusting to oversee the development of this quarterback who they're going to take. People might not like hearing this. Somehow the Jets will get one of these quarterbacks, whether it's Mendoza or Moore or Ty Simpson from Alabama. I just hope they don't have to trade a lot of picks to do it. That's why lose these last two, not that they have a chance of winning anyway. But it just, again, what does Aaron Glenn do well as a head coach? I don't like being critical of a Jet legend. I don't enjoy doing this. I'm just disgusted that we are sitting here about to go through a 3-14 season. There won't be any changes, and then we just know how this goes next year, Jet fans, don't we? Brutal start, playing out the stretch, dead coach walking, coach search in 2027. Tell me I'm wrong. 800-919-3776. Shiv in Houston, where I used to do radio for 6 years, is next. What's up, Shiv?
Yo, what's up, Jake? Shout out to the Houston Jets fans. I'm sorry Alexis had to go to that game yesterday, man. But the thing that Aaron Glenn does the best is piss off Jets fans. Because I'm telling you, man, his premature celebrating, his walking around, his cachet as if he's done something in this league prior. I mean, I get it, we drafted him, but this is it's all-time bad when the announcers start feeling sorry for us on air and panning to Jets fans. It makes us feel like we've got some sort of mental illness or something, brother. And I mean, I don't get like a sticker or a parking space for this. This is just, I guess, by choice. God bless us all. Thanks, man. Hope you're having a happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you, Shiv. I appreciate the call. Again, I need someone to tell me what Glenn actually does well besides lose games or dance or give us ridiculous sound bites that contradict everything he was preaching all offseason and summer.
Big ships turn slow.
He started quoting Robert Saleh when he used the instant coffee line earlier this year. He said the goal for the Jet season was to have a team Jet fans were proud of. Then they asked him about that a few weeks back, and he said, I never said when. Yeah, you did. You said this season. They obviously pivoted their plan when they started 0-7, and then they traded Sauce and Quinnen. But again, the same people who are now saying, Jake, what do you expect? Look at the roster. Wanted me to give praise to Aaron Glenn when they won 3 of 5 games against Dylan Gabriel, Kirk Cousins, and Joe Flacco. Remember that? Oh, they're playing hard for him. They got destroyed by the Dolphins and the Saints. They're going to get destroyed by New England and then Buffalo. They will end on a 5-game losing streak, getting, in all likelihood, blown out in all 5 of these games. It's already been 3 of them. Again, I just don't see how this improves, and that's what sucks as a fan. I hate to say it, but that's where we're at. 800-919-3776. Let's say hello to Bobby in Westchester, who's next on the Michael K. Show with Jake Asman in for Michael. Hello, Bobby.
Hey, Jake, I'm not going to say anything about Aaron Glenn because he'll be out in the second year. Here's the only thing I could think of that could make it better for us is that they would hire Rex as the defensive coordinator next year. Right?
He'd never take the job, Bobby. He would never take the job.
No, but where if he got fired, Glenn, next year, which I believe is going to happen, right? Rex then could be the head coach again. I mean, otherwise, like you said, it's misery. And I knew we were going to lose when we had that chop block at the 4th and 1 that we made.
John Simpson.
So everything, Yeah, everything that Glenn has said he was going to do, look, he's over his head. I liked him as a Jet, but he's over his head. To me, I can't see anything else. Because if we bring in Mendoza, under him, it's going to fall apart. So that's the only thing I think maybe Johnson could do it, but otherwise, you got to tell me. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you.
Bobby, thank you. Again, I love the Jets. I'll never not be a Jet fan, but we just got to be honest here, people. This is not normal what's happening with this team. It's not. All right? I sit there and watch all these games, and I watch them more than once because I'm so sick in the head. All these concerns are validated. There's so many red flags with this head coach. The quarterback decision with Fields. He said that the last 4 games of each half belong to the head coach. They're horrific in the last 4 minutes of each half. He didn't know how long the game-winning field goal was when they were in London that Nick Folk could have potentially hit. Oh, it's 65, 68. No, coach, it was 61. He hit from 58 2 games prior against Miami. Remember that? It's just, he was more critical of Brady Cook after the game than he ever was with Justin Fields. Think about that. 800-919-3776. More of your calls right now. Let's say hello to Ed in Northport. What's up, Ed? You're on the Michael K. Show with Jake
Hey,
Asman.
Jake. Good afternoon. How you doing, buddy?
Good afternoon, Ed.
So, a quick question. Listen, I believe everything that you're saying. Like Ira said, fantastic opening rant. It was wonderful. It took a lot of the points out, but, I mean, Glenn does dress well. But besides that, my question would be, if they do move on from Glenn, we'll say this year, or even next, doesn't this make this job very untouchable where it's just we're just running through quarterbacks, running through D coordinators, running through head coaches? Like, who in their right mind wants to say, you know what, I'm going to be the man for the job? Because the guy that was born and bred a Jet, Aaron Glenn, couldn't handle it. The guy they keep bringing in, it just no one's sticking here. So what makes someone think that they'll be the guy that can do it? I just want to get your opinion on that. Let's go Islanders, Jake, and Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, and talk to you soon.
Let's go Islanders, Ed. Good call. Again, I don't think Woody's going to fire Aaron Glenn, and it's a fair point. Who would take this job? Is it also fair to say that wouldn't anyone potentially be better if they at least come from an offensive side of the football? Right? Like, again, you're about to draft the quarterback. Even if that guy's maybe not a great coach, could he develop the quarterback and then we'll say thanks, see you later after that? I mean, I don't know. And it's kind of hopeless as a fan because I don't think Woody's going to do it. People bring up the contract that Glenn is owed, right? He signed a 5-year deal. I heard Rich Samiti say on his podcast this week that it's around $10 million a year. I don't think it's a money thing. I think it's an ego thing. People need to understand Woody Johnson made this hire. It's the first coach and GM hire that he made in a decade. He did not hire Joe Douglas or Robert Saleh or Adam Gase. His brother oversaw that. Woody was drinking tea in London as the ambassador, doing God knows what. This is the first time he hired a head coach since Todd Bowles and Mike McCagnon. I don't think he wants to admit this level of mistake that it would be. And I do think the fact that Glenn played for the Jets, it probably makes it tough. I think he likes him. As a person, I think Aaron Glenn's a good dude. I just don't think he's a modern NFL coach. What has improved on the Jets this year? Aaron Glenn said this at his press conference earlier today. He was asked what message to give to the fans. How can anyone listen to what I'm about to play and actually believe this is true?
To me, I will continue to say, just don't let go of the rope. Because there is a plan, there is a vision. From day one, we've been trying to set the foundation of what we want this team to be. And a lot of that is from in-house perspective for the most part. You still have a number of things that you have to go through as far as, making sure that everybody understands exactly what you're trying to accomplish what type of team do you want to be. And our guys know that. They do. But listen, we have to continue to work on that. Between me and Moose, we got to continue to, players that we want. That whole deal is something that we continue to look at. And for the fans, listen, it's going to be a tough road, and we knew that. But, man, the thing is, we know exactly what we're doing, and we do have a plan. And just don't let go of the rope. I would say that.
The rope is actually around my neck, Aaron, and it's choking me out because that is what it feels like to be a Jet fan. What's he supposed to say? I understand that. Anyone actually believe that? What foundation's being set? They knew it would take a while? No, they didn't. That's not what they said. Remember Quinn Williams, after they got rid of Rodgers, said, I guess another rebuild for me. And Glenn right away said, no, not true. we're here to win now. And they made moves in the offseason, like splitting up the Rodgers salary cap hit over 2 years to give them more space because they said and implied with their actions they could take a team that had the lead 7 times in the fourth quarter a year ago, clean up the penalty problem. Last 4 minutes of each half belong to the coach. They're going to be able to coach up the roster, and they'll win games. They completely misevaluated their own roster, completely misevaluated Justin Fields. Glenn completely botched his defensive coordinator hire. Why should I trust him to now oversee the selection and development of a rookie quarterback? I have no choice, and as a Jet fan, I'm rooting for the man, but I'm not going to sit here and just act like it's all hunky-dory, as Michael Kay would say. Vinny in Staten Island is up next. Hello, Vinny.
How you doing, Jake? Jake, this is the worst I've ever seen it. This guy makes Robert Saleh look like Vince Lombardi. They have to get rid of this guy as soon as possible because they're only going to get rid of him next year. It's got to end. He's absolutely clueless as a head coach. He wasn't even a good defensive coordinator with Detroit. They were like middle of the pack, number 20th in defense. It's terrible. They got talent on offense. They finally got a good offensive line. There's plenty of good free agent quarterbacks out there. They're going to draft another quarterback, and what are they going to do with him? They're going to give him 2 years. He's going to be horrible, and the Jet fans are going to boo him out of the stadium like Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold.
And then he'll go somewhere else and just like Sam, be successful again.
Quarterbacks take time to develop. Look at Trevor Lawrence. It took him 5 years to develop. Sam Darnold, 5-6 years to develop. You got to have patience, and the Jet fans are the worst. You have 2-3 bad games, and they blew you out of the stadium. They're idiots. The Jet fans are stupid as can be, and Aaron Glenn has got to go. You got to get rid of him now.
Vinny, I appreciate it. Look, I don't think Woody's going to do it. I think we're going to pretend like it's all going to get better when they spend money and have these draft picks, and then they'll start 1-5 next year, and it's going to be another one of those years. I was talking with Anthony Pusick about this before the show, the esteemed producer of DHR. We're kind of where the Giants were a year ago, right? Mara kept Shane and Dable. They know they needed to get a quarterback and win games, otherwise they'd be fired. Well, guess what? Dable's already been fired, and we're going to get to the Giants coming up. Believe me, Giants fans. Shane needs to go too. But that's where the Jets now are. Again, they completely misevaluated every big decision they've had to make, but we're supposed to trust them? Don't let go of the rope. All right, Aaron, I'm going to take the rope, and you don't want to know what I'm going to do with that rope as being a Jet fan. 800-919-3776. At Jake Asman on X. If you want to tweet, I'll read some responses. We're streaming on YouTube on the ESPN New York YouTube channel as well. I'll mix it up in the comment section during this commercial break, so get over there. Again, more on the Jets, more on the Giants. We'll talk about everything going on in the NFL. Big Monday night game tonight between the Niners and the Colts. Jet fans need to be rooting for Robert Saleh tonight because the Jets own that Colts pick. We'll talk more about that later on in the show. Keep it right here. Jake Asman with you, in for Michael Kay till 3 on ESPN New York and the ESPN New York app. I got a kick out of something that happened in the NFL yesterday. So by the Steelers defeating the Lions, Aaron Rodgers sent Robert Saleh and the 49ers to the playoffs. San Fran clinched the playoff spot because the Steelers beat the Lions. So it took a little while, but Aaron Rodgers got Robert Saleh to the playoffs. Oh, man. Remember the optimism we had going into that Monday night game in 2023? Best sports moment of my life, and about 10 minutes later, one of the worst. Only the Jets. But hey, don't let go of the rope.
Just don't let go of the rope.
God. Damian Woody was on Unsportsmanlike earlier today. Actually, no. He was on Barton Carlin. I don't know why I said that. It's just usually, honestly, it's like a verbal crutch, Ray. It's just like, of course, it's unsportsmanlike. But no, he was on our station, damn it. And by the way, I'm in for Carlin tomorrow with Bart from 10 to 2, so looking forward to that. But this was Damian Woody earlier talking about his most concerning thing he sees with the New York Jets.
As a coach, guys should be getting better. We know that they're a talent-deficient team, but you should still see, from an individual standpoint, players, especially young players, getting better, and I'm just not seeing that when I watch the Jets play.
You're seeing nothing. No one's gotten better besides Trawan Briggs on defense. Offensively, there's a couple pieces, but are guys really improving? Like, Armand Memba was good immediately. You know, Garrett Wilson was good immediately. Like, they actually have some real talented players on that side of the ball. It's not completely dire for any quarterback if that quarterback, to quote the owner of the team, could just complete a pass. But again, are they being coached up well? And again, I need to know. Aaron Glenn shows up at the Jet facility. He gets his hug from Woody Johnson, and then what? And I'm not trying to be a you-know-what. I need to know, what does he do all day? He doesn't coordinate the defense. He doesn't coordinate the offense. He calls plays for neither side of the ball. He's already fired his hand-picked defensive coordinator and replaced him with a guy on his staff. The defense allowed 29 points to Tyler Shuck yesterday. They don't have an interception for an NFL record now, 15 consecutive games. They have 3 defensive takeaways all year. What exactly does the head coach do? That's all I'm asking for. What is he doing to improve things? If I'm Woody, I'm asking these questions. He's telling us that he has this plan. What is the plan? Because your original plan was to try and win games this year, be competitive, show player development, improvement. It's been the total opposite. Damian Woody just said what I've been saying. He knows. Players know. You're a free agent. Why are you signing with the Jets? Sure, they could pay you a lot, but now you got to pay the Jet tax and the state tax here in New York. Don't get me started. Again, I don't know how any Jet fan could have confidence. I would love to be wrong. I'm rooting for Aaron Glenn, and I know it doesn't sound like it, but I got to be honest. This team is so poorly coached, and we're supposed to just blindly go with it. We have no choice. I don't think Woody's going to fire him, but we're going to be doing this coach search just like the Giants are now going to be doing a year from now. That's where this is headed. Again, are the Jets going to win 8 or 9 games next year? The Lions won 9 in their second year with Dan Campbell. Is Aaron Glenn going to be able to do that? Really? To quote Michael K., I'll play along. 800-919-3776. Lewis in Jersey is next up on the K Show with Jake Asman in for Michael. Hello, Lewis. Happy holidays.
Hey, happy holidays. How's it going? I'm not a Jets fan, but I live in the area, so I watch all the games. My boys are Jets fans, and I was of the camp of you got to give them 2 years, with just like Dan Campbell, turn it around. But the last straw was what you said earlier was that their quarterback's coach was a running back.
Look it up. Everyone out there, Google who Aaron Glenn hired as his QB coach. He's a former running back at Duke. Here's Charles London's experience. You ready, Jet fans? This is who is going to be in charge of overseeing the development of Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson or Dante Moore. Here's the resume for Charles London, our current quarterback coach, Jet fans. Duke grad assistant, then Duke running backs coach, Bears offensive quality control coach. We're now in 2007. Titans offensive assistant, Penn State running backs coach under Bill O'Brien, Houston Texans running back coach under O'Brien, Bears running backs coach, Falcons quarterback coach in 2021 and 2022, Titans QB coach and pass game coordinator. Oh, you mean the guy that oversaw Malik Willis's lack of development until he got to Green Bay? Yep, that's him. Seattle Seahawks quarterback coach, Geno Smith. And now the New York Jets 2025 quarterback coach. Again, I don't know Charles London, but I would need to know why he's the quarterback coach. Like, these are the hires I'm talking about. Why am I trusting Aaron Glenn when this is who he picked as his QB coach to help Justin Fields, quote, get coached up properly? Because he said Fields has never been coached up properly. Now, this is the guy entrusted to draft a quarterback? Are you out of your minds thinking this is going to go well? Unbelievable. Tyrone in California, next up on the K Show. Hello, Tyrone.
Hey, how you doing, Jake? It's been a while.
Fantastic, Tyrone.
I'm going to tell you, I loved Glenn when he played with us, He was good. I was intercepting Marino, but Marino got him on one-on-one there. But anyway, there's one thing I have noticed, is that he's not a good leader because you know what good leaders do when they're coordinators or any leader, because I'm a leader on my job. When they're not producing, you got to take charge and take over. And he just let his coordinators sit there on defense and destroy the year. And I've seen a lot of head coaches take over when that's happening, and I don't know why he hasn't done that yet. Like, maybe, and I never really thought of him as a great defensive coordinator coming out of Detroit. I mean, I didn't see anything that they did that was so crazy that made him such a great defensive coordinator.
Well, Tyrone, his last year in Detroit, they had a ton of injuries, and they finished 8th in defensive EPA. I thought overall he did a really good job. The first 3 years, you look at the numbers, they're not good. And they obviously had a great offense to lean on, too, which certainly helps. Again, Aaron Glenn, when they hired him, they talked about how he's the CEO of the team. and he's going to steer the franchise in the right direction, but he's not an X's and O's guy, right? But that's the NFL nowadays. Look at the Bears with Ben Johnson. Look at the Jaguars with Liam Cohen. Like, I don't think you could hire the straight-up CEO head coach, right? Like there's not a lot of Mike Tomlins that are left that are still very successful. Like, DeMeco Ryans calls the plays in Houston. Mike McDonald, the Seahawks head coach, he calls the plays. Like, look at the best teams. Like, most of the coaches call their plays for their respective side of the ball. Again, we continue to hire first-time defensive coordinators who are learning on the job. Only this time, Woody Johnson trusted Aaron Glenn so much, he made him the de facto general manager. He referred to Darren Muji, the actual GM, as the sidekick to Glenn. That's why I'm harping on this, because I want to get out in front of it. I don't like the direction this franchise is going. You can't sell me on a plan. You've changed the plan multiple times in season because you've been so damn bad at your job. And I have no choice but to root for them to prove me wrong and be successful because I love this team, live and die with them. I was born into it, like that kid that went viral said. But objectively speaking, what has Aaron Glenn done well as a head coach that should inspire anyone to think, we got the guy? I want to give some love to the great Bob Wischusen, who was the MVP of the New York Jets during this illustrious playoff drought, which is now at 15 years and counting. So Bob called the Oregon game Saturday night in Eugene, right? The Oregon JMU game that cost me copious amounts of cash because Oregon decided to stop playing hard in the second half and allowed JMU to backdoor cover. I digress. Bob! So shout out to Bob Wischusen because he somehow was able to make it to New Orleans in time for a noon Central Time kickoff yesterday for the Jets and the Saints. He apparently got there at 10:28 a.m. and then had to hustle up to the booth to be able to call the game. Now, Ray, you know Bob's travel plans. What logistically did he have to do to get from Eugene, Oregon, late Saturday night and somehow get to New Orleans to call Jets Saints, a game where the Jets did not even score a touchdown, poor Bob, and lost 29-6?
It involved a 120-mile drive from Eugene to the Portland airport, followed by a red-eye flight from Portland to Houston, transfer to another plane to go from Houston to New Orleans, get in an Uber to the Superdome, up to the booth, say hi to Anthony Becht, start calling Jets.
Bob! Incredible. Shout out to Bob. He's amazing. What kills me about the Jets being bad is that we have arguably the best radio play-by-play guy in the business for calling the New York Jets, and we never get to hear exciting calls. Brutal. He's so good on football, and he's so good with the NHL coverage as well. Shout out to Bob Wischusen, man. He's missed one game in 24 years. If there was ever a game for Bob Wischusen to miss, it's after calling a college football playoff game in Oregon and saying, you know what? We'll let Dan Grosser call the Jets Saints, the 3-11 Jets versus the 4-10 Saints. We'll let Grosser handle that one. And Bob said, absolutely not. I'm getting there, baby. Bob! So shout out to Bob Wischusen. He's incredible at what he does, and I just thought it was wild that he was able to pull that off. So good for him. The Athletic, Zach Rosenblatt, wrote a really cool story about Bob's time as the voice of the Jets. Because why would you write about the current team right now if you're Zach? Let's focus on something not related to the current team. 800-919-3776. We're going to get to the Giants coming up, but more of your calls right now on the Jets. We say hello to Jim in Queens, who's up next on the K Show. Hello, Jim.
Hey, what's up, Jake? So the two words that you bring up, I've been saying for years, not normal. That we don't have a pick, it's not normal in 15 games. Since Rex and Sanchez, all Jeff fans talk about is the next coach and the next quarterback.
Yep.
It's disgusting. It's unbelivable.
What else do we have to talk about? We can't talk about actually winning games.
I know. That's how awful it is. That's all we talk about. But you know what? I thought they were getting all this draft capital to get one of the rookies. But you know what? I think I'm making it about face. Now everybody brings up Burrow. I think they're gonna try to get a guy. I think they're gonna go the Rams route, and F them picks and try to get a veteran guy because they have to. I think they're gonna try to hit the ground running. You know what scares me about Glenn and Brady Cook's quotes saying, I don't want to turn the ball over. I think they pound into their brains. These quarterbacks don't turn the ball over. It's okay. This kid should be slinging it all over the lot.
They neuter them,
with
Jim.
3 wins.
Yeah, great call. They neuter the quarterback position. It's not modern how they coach up their quarterbacks. This was a problem with Saleh as well. Remember he had that quote, first 1 to 20 will win. That's how we're approaching it before the Jets played the Raiders in Vegas in 2023. I was there. That game sucked. Like, they do not have a modern approach to how the game is played. That coach said last week it's not about the X's and O's. Coach, it's all about the X's and O's. All the top teams in the league have brilliant strategists as their head coach. We have a guy who doesn't call plays on either side of the ball who's stuck in the 1990s or the early 2000s. I'm not saying that, like, being disciplined and cleaning up the penalties and tackling and fundamentals don't matter. It obviously matters, but that's all Glenn's been trying to sell us on. The Jets do none of those things well, and he's not an expert on his side of the ball. So we hired dollar store Robert Saleh to this point. You know, Saleh won 4 games with Zach Wilson as his quarterback and a way worse roster in year 1. Justin Fields is in his 5th year. They gave him $30 million guaranteed. The Jets are going to finish with 3 wins. This was not supposed to be the case. Their win total in Vegas at every sports book was 6.5. They're going to not even come close to that. They won't sniff a 4th win, given the two opponents they have left. They won't sniff it.
Just don't let go of the rope.
Oh, my God. It's brutal. Brutal. That's the word I keep coming back to. Bob in North Carolina up next on the Michael K. Show with Jake Asman. Hello, Bob.
Hey, Jake. Love the Jet passion. I'm a 50 Jet fan myself. We're talking about, I heard you say something about next year's schedule, and, they're playing the NFC North, the AFC West. I mean, your own division. I mean, the way I see it, that's minimum 12 losses right there. Give yourself one maybe against the Raiders and the Dolphins. If you're going to fire this guy with 19 to go, like you said earlier, why are you going to let this guy draft when you got 5 picks on the top 100? Why not just get rid of him and get somebody in here? If you know he's gone anyway, what is the point of letting this guy go on? I don't understand.
Well, Bob, I think Woody Johnson is not going to have the guts to make that level of a decision. And I do think he probably still believes in Aaron Glenn. I think Woody wants to win. I think he keeps trusting the wrong people. But again, he keeps doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The New York Jets have hired how many first-time coaches from a defensive background in a row since Bill Parcells? The one time they didn't was Adam Gase, who never should have got the job in the first place. Mike McCarthy wanted the job, and apparently the Jets didn't like how he interviewed. Remember that? So let's hire Adam Gase. Again, this franchise just can't get out of its own way, and we as fans, we're the ones who are stuck dealing with it. Here's the Jets' schedule next year. We don't know when the games are, obviously, but we know who the opponents will officially be. They'll play at home, of course, New England, Buffalo, and Miami. They will play the Broncos, the Raiders, the Browns, the Packers, and the Vikings. So the home schedule, at least on paper, is not absolutely brutal. The road schedule, though, in addition to Buffalo, New England, and Miami, at Kansas City, at the Chargers, at the Bears, at the Lions, at Cardinals, at the Titans. Again, how many games will the Jets go into next year with either the better coach or quarterback in the matchup? How many games will they go into next year with the better coach or quarterback combination? Which ultimately, 80% of the NFL is coach and quarterback. We know this, right? You see how the Patriots were winning last night with all their injuries on their O-line and some of the receivers that Drake May is throwing to? It's because they have Mike Vrabel and they have Drake May. Right now, the Jets don't have a head coach anyone can trust, and they have no quarterback. But yeah, let's let a defensive-minded coach pick the next quarterback. That ought to go well. What could go wrong? Gabriel in Brooklyn up next on the K Show. Hello, Gabriel.
Hey, man, how you doing, Jake? Listen, I was listening to you a little bit earlier when Aaron Glenn came on talking about don't let go of the rope. I told your man they don't have to let go of the rope because it's not even a rope. They don't even have a rope to hold on. And honestly, to be honest with you, I think one of the biggest mistakes they made was getting rid of Aaron Rodgers because his contract wasn't going to be that much longer at this point or the way the season was going for them. A veteran quarterback present like Aaron Rodgers would have helped them a whole lot. and they would have got more win out of him than they're doing now. And they would have been playing a whole lot better. So I think they Aaron Glenn attitude of like, yo, get him out of here, this and this, it backfired on him. You know what I'm saying? He should have kept Aaron Rodgers to help him out. You know what I mean? Put his personal feelings aside, whatever feeling he had towards Aaron Rodgers, he should put aside and knowing that this guy's a veteran. He's going to be a future Hall of Fame. I could use his guidance as a first-year head coach.
Gabriel, totally fair. My take on Rodgers was this. I wanted them back because it also would have meant you would have had Devontae back, and Rodgers said he would be willing to take a pay cut, and I wanted Rodgers back, draft a quarterback. All right, they moved on. I understood it. The problem is when the pivot is Justin Fields and you're defiant in saying he's never been coached up properly, we signed him because we're going to let him play quarterback. He was tough to game plan against when I was in Detroit. That's part of the reason why I handpicked him. When you say these things publicly and then Fields proceeds to play as bad as he's ever played, that is a major red flag. Again, if they brought Rodgers back with this coach, the defense still would have sucked. Him and Rodgers, I don't think, would have gotten along, and all the blame would have been on Aaron Rodgers. Fans would have taken the side of the former Jet. It would just be delaying what we now know that Aaron Glenn's a bad coach. Now, what's Woody Johnson going to do with this information? Probably nothing, but when the Jets finish 5-12 next year, and Aaron Glenn will have 8 wins through 2 years, he will be fired. We will have a new coach in 2027, and then the cycle will never end. We get back into the Jets conversation right now. We say hello to someone who knows the Jets as well as anyone. You could watch him on the Jets pre- and post-game show on SNY. He's part of the Badlands Network on Patreon. He's on NBC covering the draft in the NFL. It's our guy, Connor Rogers, who's kind enough to give us some time here on a Monday. Connor, happy holidays, and really appreciate you joining us.
Same to you, Jake. Thanks for having me, man. How are you?
I'm okay. You know that I'm suffering with this Jets team. And again, I want to make it clear. I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, they're so bad when I'm someone who believes losing at this point is better. But am I wrong for thinking, man, it's not just that they're losing, it's how uncompetitive they've been. Should they really be 23 points worse than the New Orleans Saints yesterday?
Right, that's the exact issue. The fact that this is a team that there was a little stretch and, they won 3 of 5. The 2 losses against Baltimore and New England looked better than this. And then you think that you're taking some strides in some places with some young players, some new players, hopefully some players that have been here are kind of starting to mesh into the culture and the scheme. 2 things that the Jets have completely lacked this year, by the way. And then you get blown out by Miami, blown out by Jacksonville, and blown out by New Orleans. 2 of those 3 teams are very poor by the NFL standards right now. And I think what it comes down to, because it's easier to evaluate things in a vacuum. I agree with you. Losses are kind of king for the Jets at this moment. The better they can, kind of set themselves up in this draft is best for their long-term future, which is going to be a really interesting final 2 weeks of the season. But I think the bottom line is, hearing all the chatter that no matter what, Aaron Glenn is back, you have to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, number one, what has Aaron Glenn, how has he grown into this job this year? Usually when you have a new regime, you give them a little grace that there's not going to be a ton of wins right away as they try to retool the system. Well, Glenn, from all the chatter this summer and the first half of the season, tried to win with some players that have been here and some lower-cost moves. They started off 0-7. They traded 2 of their best players in Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, realizing they needed to completely change the strategy and the picture, and that pivot was probably the correct one. But now when you look at it, it can't look like this, right? Where, honestly, for the most part, Glenn is really going through it on the sidelines. You can evaluate his in-game decisions. You can evaluate schematically what they do and don't do, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which is what got him in this position, right? They don't generate any pressures from a scheme standpoint of blitzing. They're right at the bottom of the league in unblocked pressures generated, which is usually a good signal of how effective your blitz packages are. And honestly, a lot of the players that, he talked about over summer, these guys just needed coaching. A lot of the players from the previous regime, forget having taken a step forward. A lot of them have taken steps backward. It has not been a good year coming off injury for Jermaine Johnson. Will McDonald has run very hot and cold. Jamie Sherwood played better yesterday, but he's had a terrible year after they gave him the contract extension. They gave Brandon Stevens a lot of money in free agency, and he's been very up and down, and I would argue a little bit more down. They don't have any talent on the back end of the defense. Quincy Williams doesn't look like himself in the scheme, and he'll leave for free agency anyway. So it's very tough right now, and it doesn't mean they can't get it right. It doesn't mean they can't draft their way out of this. But what you can evaluate right now is where this coaching staff stands. And outside of special teams under Chris Banjo, they don't really do anything well.
And I heard you on the postgame say, how many times can we talk about the special teams? Because, again, while that's nice, here they are with 3 wins. And, Connor, I'm going to give you a stat. I don't know how many Jet fans are aware of just, how bad it is, because I think we're just so desensitized to all the losing. Assuming the Jets lose these last 2, whether it be significant underdogs against the Patriots and the Bills, Glenn's going to finish with 14 losses. That's only happened for a Jet coach 2 other times before this year, and the coaches were Kotite and Gase. So I'm sitting here as a Jet fan. I don't enjoy being critical of this head coach, but it just feels like they're going to get off to a bad start next year. You look at the schedule, it's brutal, at least on paper, and it's going to be dead coach walking for Aaron Glenn, and here we go, coach search in 2027, and the cycle's never going to end. What can I hold on to that things would actually get better for this regime?
Right, and I think some people, and I understand this from fans, but some fans are sensitive to people like you, and I'm guilty of this as well, or just being honest, of really criticizing everything that's gone on next year. But you can say that and still accept that things can get better next year, right? Maybe you improve as a coach. Maybe you make the right DC hire, and the scheme looks a lot better, and with all the draft picks and free agency money you have, the roster is a lot better. Now, I'm not a big believer and proponent of assembling a team through free agency because, one, a lot of the great in their prime players don't make it a free agency. There's a reason they even get there anymore. Teams just lock up their own guys by the time free agency comes around. 2, I don't really know what the pitch would be to free agents for this Jets team right now besides money. And yes, money goes a long way, but everybody in the NFL has cap space when they want it. They just manufacture it. They put void years on deals. They kick money down the road. With the TV money in the NFL, every team can generate cap space if they need it for a player they really like. So that's a hard thing to bet on for the Jets right now. Now, the draft, not so much. I think the draft is where they can really clean up. I liked what they did in the first 3 rounds last year with Membu, Mason Taylor, and Azaria Thomas, especially before Azaria got hurt for the season. I thought he was playing really well at corner. So maybe Darren Muji can capitalize on having multiple picks in the first and second rounds, and maybe even find a player on day 3, which is something they kind of struggled to do, it looks like, in last year's class, depending on how Malachi Moore ends up. So I think, once again, the issue is you're hoping for it to turn at some point gradually. You're not expecting to take 10 steps up the ladder. You're expecting to maybe take 1, 2, or 3 the first year, and there just hasn't been consistent improvement from specifically the coaching staff. And anybody can get on there and say, well, they're starting Brady Cook. He's not an NFL quarterback. I totally agree. But once again, you can isolate what you're evaluating and see things outside of Brady Cook that are still fundamentally broken with this team right now. They're still not disciplined, right? They're not very creative on either side of the ball overall. So I just, and in-game situations, when they are even in a game, aren't really managed properly. So you could sit here and be highly critical of the job Glenn has done this year and lack faith in him going forward, while still accepting that if some things go right, it can get better. But you need to be careful, right? Because I think the next combo you and I are going to have, I would imagine, is this a team that's going to be drafting a quarterback this year? And if that's the case, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but look at exactly what just happened with the Chicago Bears, right? Chicago Bears drafted a quarterback first overall, and they kept the staff that there wasn't a lot of reasons to believe in them under Matt Eberflus. And it was a disastrous rookie season for Caleb Williams, really a waste of a year of his entire NFL career. They move on from that staff. Now, it looks like they got things right with Ben Johnson, which is a great example of a turnaround. But the Bears probably wish that they never even had that year with Eberflus necessarily in the first place and just tried to hire Ben Johnson that offseason if he was willing to take the job. So you need to be a little bit careful about that as well, especially if they're going to trade assets to go up and get a quarterback. Do you trust this regime developing that quarterback? That's something that we can't answer right now.
Connor Rogers is our guest. Jake Asman in for Michael Kay. Connor's on the Jets pre- and post-game show on SNY. Check him out on Badlands, NFL Stock Exchange podcast as well, and, of course, on NBC Sports. Connor, when you look at the defense, right, because to me, when Aaron Glenn said, we're running the Wilkes system, so then they end up getting rid of Steve Wilkes. Well, now here we are these last couple games. First game without Steve Wilkes, they allowed 29 points. I just struggled to see what exactly Aaron Glenn is doing all week if he's not going to be a part of his defense. He's a defensive coach, of course, and yet now the Jets have broken this stat for not having an interception through 15 weeks. It's just, none of it adds up. It doesn't, it's just, I get it, the talent's not there, but it shouldn't look like this. There's just too many red flags with what we're watching, if we're being honest.
Yeah, so let me call what's fair and unfair. I think what's unfair is firing Wilkes and expecting anything to change under Chris Harris is we shouldn't have any expectations there. They're not, and Bart really emphasized this as well with us on post-game and pre-game yesterday. You can't change all the verbiage. You can't really change a ton of things that you're asking of these guys. There's just not enough practice time in 1 week to do that. There's probably not enough practice time in these final 2 weeks to really do that. So I would temper expectations on how different things can look. But to your larger point, and I fully agree with this, it's actually one of my biggest frustrations with this organization right now is Aaron Glenn got this job because of his ability to coach up on the defensive side of the ball with the Detroit Lions over the years. Aaron Glenn, since he got this job in the way he speaks and the way the team operates, just hired a defensive coordinator, one that has not had a good last couple of stops, to completely control the defense. And that has completely blown up in their face now, where you need to be honest with yourself here and go, okay, I understand that you want to coach the whole team, and I respect that. That was a problem on the other end that Robert Saleh had, right? And plenty of coaches have this problem. But like Brian Dable, what went wrong with the Giants? But the problem is, I think everybody needs to be on the same page. And Aaron Glenn needs to either hire a proven defensive coordinator that is going to implement a system that he is a fan of and can evaluate for. Because if you understand and have coached the defensive scheme that you're hiring for right now, that's going to make life easier for you when everybody thinks when football stops, that football stops at the organization. It doesn't. You're still showing up to the facility every day, watching pro tape for free agency and watching college tape for the NFL draft, and finding the right players working in tandem with the GM and the scouting staff that fit what you do on that side of the ball. And when Glenn started the last couple of weeks before he fired Wilkes saying it's Wilkes' defense, that was a red alarm in my head that it was all put on Steve Wilkes. Well, guess what? You only get to point the finger around the room so many times before everybody's looking at you and saying, you're the one hiring these guys. So Aaron Glenn not only needs to get this hire right, but it needs to be somebody aligned with what he wants to do defensively, and it seems like he needs to be more involved at that side of the ball for things to improve.
Connor, you're obviously a draft guy, so I'm curious. What is like the ideal scenario for the Jets? Of course, you want to be picking as high as possible, but when you look at the likely options and the things on how it could play out, what to you would be like a dream scenario for Jet fans down the stretch here that would inspire some hope going forward with this regime?
Yeah, so I think the dream scenario, because you're trying to find every way you can to pick number one, right? I think in a way you're oddly rooting for the Giants to beat the Raiders, and that would get the Giants to 3 wins like the Jets have, and then strength of schedule the rest of the season would play a part in this. And then you're rooting for the Raiders to beat a lifeless, severely undermanned Kansas City team the final week of the season. That would get the Raiders to 3 wins. As strength of schedule stands today, which is very fluid in the NFL, despite there only being 2 weeks left, you would have a scenario where, the Jets could possibly try to play ahead of some of those teams. And then obviously you want Cleveland to beat the Steelers as well, get them out of the way of 4 wins. And then you're hoping to be picking 1 or 2. And ideally you'd have, it's weird, right? Because this is something that you're not really necessarily rooting for. But the Raiders, if they're ahead of you, I don't think they're going to be able to get out of that pick. It'll be like the Titans last year, where the Titans were like, nope, we're not trading it. We're taking Cam Ward. You don't even bother really calling us with offers because we got our guy. I think the Raiders would do the same thing. Now, the Giants, on the other hand, I think would have an absolute auction for the draft pick. Now, there needs to be a line here in the sand. Like if the Jets are picking at 2 and Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore are in this draft, maybe they like both those guys and just take a guy. Or even say they like Fernando Mendoza, they want him number 1 overall. Going from 2 to 1, what do you have to give the Giants to go up? It's not going to be 3 1s, right? The cost would be severely lower. And then the Giants could trade out of 2 again if they wanted to in that spot. Now, if the Jets are picking 4 and the Giants are picking 1, is that going to run you the pick swap, the Colts pick, which could be somehow in the top 15, and then another selection? Like, I think there needs to be a line drawn in the sand here, Jake. And I know a lot of people listening will be like, well, you got to get the quarterback. You got to do whatever it takes. How many times do we see a quarterback thrown into a situation where the roster is not good enough and that quarterback fails over and over again? So I don't necessarily agree with the do whatever it takes, because the Jets need some of this draft capital to not only replace the talent that they traded, but to build out the rest of the roster, a roster that doesn't look great at the moment right now. So, yes, you need to find a way to get the quarterback, and the schedule situations that I just laid out to you is probably your best pathway to moving up in this draft. Some of it's likely. Somebody has to win between Giants and Raiders, right? And the Raiders could feasibly beat a bad Chiefs team. Now, the Browns beating the Steelers, that's more on the unlikely scale. So a lot of bad football left to be played out in these 2 weeks.
It's unfortunate, but this is where we're at with this Jets team. Final question for me, Connor. I do a Sunday show with Mike Tannenbaum on our station, and he was defiant yesterday that if the Giants end up with the number 1 pick, if he was running the Giants, he would draft Fernando Mendoza. He loves him. He's compared to the Matt Ryan. He is as high on Mendoza as any prospect he's talked about with me since we started doing the show, and he would trade Jackson Dart. You're a draft guy. How would Jackson Dart versus Fernando Mendoza be graded out if you were evaluating the prospects if they were in the same draft class?
It's tricky, right? Because I think, one, I do think Mendoza is going to come out with a higher floor than Dart came out with, coming out of the system that Dart came out with. But Dart, to his credit, I think has played better than anyone expected against pro NFL teams this year. And I know it's been a struggle since he got hurt, but we've seen it before now. We haven't seen Fernando Mendoza against an NFL team. So I think it would be a pretty tough sell to trade Jackson Dart personally, especially with the other side of it. It's not just as simple as stay at 1 and take Fernando Mendoza and trade Jackson Dart for what, right? Like it's if somebody's offering me 3 1s, okay, that's a little different. That's not going to happen, right? You're probably getting, I guess, a first-round pick back for Jackson Dart. But that number 1 overall pick, that if you kept Jackson Dart, like I said, could be moved twice. You could flip back to 2 and let a team come up for Mendoza, and then a team might want Dante Moore if he declares for this draft at 2, where the Giants are sitting there and going, okay, we have Jackson Dart, who we really like. He's done some good things this year. He's got to stay healthy. We'll actually have him running, hopefully under a competent head coach next year. And we also have all this talent. We drafted a Carnell Tate from Ohio State to catch passes across from Malik Neighbors with him. And we got an offensive lineman that we feel really, really good about. We spread out the talent to lift up Jackson Dart. So I would call it, I wouldn't bet on that happening, that they take Fernando Mendoza and move on from Dart that quickly. I think Dart has a lot of supporters in that building, but I'm sure it's not the last time you're going to hear this conversation because we have a lot of airtime to fill until now from the NFL draft.
It's almost Connor Rogers season with the draft. Can't wait, man.
Right.
You do a great job, Connor. I'll actually be in for Carlin tomorrow hosting with Bart, so I'm sure we'll talk about some of the behind the scenes of pre and post on SNY. You do a great job. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Jake. Happy holidays, man, and we'll talk soon.